All human behavior is goal-directed. And what is the goal of that behavior? We are all looking for safety, significance, and belonging. However, we oftentimes run into conflict when we look at how we get those things as being different. And so there is no inherent conflict between human beings, but there is the appearance of conflict and how we go about getting our safety, significance, and belonging. And oftentimes it is the context that we are grown up in or we're adapting to that helps to dictate how we go about getting the things that are important to us, how we get our safety, how we get our significance, and how we get our belonging. And through that context, we develop cultures that are in direct response to the context that we're in, that we've developed in, that we've grown up in. And so we have to be critical thinkers about our context, about the times that we're in, how things have changed, new technologies, new relationships, how those things shape who we are and what we do today. And so I have an activity that I'm going to have you do. And it is called the What Did You Learn Growing Up card. Now, I wanted to tell you, I'm not very original for naming things, right? So what did you learn up? What did you learn growing up? So I'm going to have you engage in an activity called the What Did You Learn Growing Up card. I know, not very creative, right? But what I want you to do with this card is there are columns across the top of categories of human beings that are used, particularly in the United States, to group us. And on the left side of the card are groups that have given us information about those groups across the top. All right. So what have people on this left side told us about those groups? And if it was something that was positive, I want you to put a plus. If it was something that was negative, I want you to put a minus. And if there was never any conversation about that group, I want you to put a 0. I want you to check your pluses, your minuses, and your zeros. Now, you may run into some situations where you can put pluses and minuses in the same box, and I want you to do so. But the size of your plus and the size of your minus will dictate how much you learned. So a big plus means lots of positive, and a little minus means a little bit of negative. And a 0 means that you didn't learn anything at all. Now, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that exercise right on your own. Okay, now I want you to recognize where you have pluses, I want you to recognize where you have pluses, where you have minuses, and where you have zeros. Now, this is not to make you feel embarrassed or bad or to blame anyone, but it is for you to recognize that there may be places and ways that you came out of a context that may no longer be serving you, or there may be things that you have to learn or overcome so that you can be as effective as you want to be. So we all come from a context, and that context is limiting our experience in the world if we're not being Homo sapiens sapien. The ones who know that they exist. And so I don't know if you recognize, but there's a device company that has an apple as their logo, and there is a bite taken out of that apple. Do you know why they have that logo? Because we are the ones who bite knowledge. And so although I may have grown up in a limited environment, that is not my fault. I may have been taught limiting information or not been told full stories. Those are not my fault. However, when I come to the age of accountability, the things that were not my fault now become my responsibility. So how many of you have ridden or driven a car, right? You've ridden in a car or driven in a car. Does that car have blind spots? Of course it does. They're typically, at the mirrors or in the back or under the car for some of you smart alecks, right? But if you drive a Hummer, the whole thing is a blind spot. So are those blind spots your fault? I would suggest that they are not your fault. You weren't on the design team for your vehicle. And for the most part, most vehicles have blind spots. So if it is not your fault, you're getting it. It is, however, your responsibility. And so too often we are looking for fault in other people and situations and organizations, when in fact what we should be doing is taking responsibility to make sure that we create atmospheres that are better than the ones that were given to us. And so although these things are not your fault, they are your responsibility. And so I would suggest that as human beings, we're all looking for safety, significance, and belonging, and that ultimately our humanity is expressed when we are in relationships with other human beings.